Yesterday, we again heard a new statement from the President of the United States regarding whether there will be a meeting with you or not, and concerning the Ukrainian crisis. Almost simultaneously, American sanctions were introduced against Russian oil companies. Today, the European Union imposed another round of anti-Russian sanctions. Now, toilets, motorized toys, puzzles, and tricycles are banned. How can you comment on all of this? The fact that they have canceled the purchase of our toilets, that will cost them dearly. In general, it seems to me they would actually need them in today's situation if they continue to pursue the same policy toward the Russian Federation. As for the statements by the President of the United States, well, what can I say? In our last telephone conversation, both the meeting itself and the place where it was to be held were proposed by the American side. And I agreed with that, shared my thoughts in this regard, and said that, of course, such meetings must be well prepared for both me and the American president. It would be a mistake to take this lightly and to leave such a meeting without the expected result. I must say that the President of the United States agreed with this, fully agreed, and said that on their side, a number of officials from the current U.S. administration would work on preparing this meeting. He named some of them, and I said that after our American colleague decides on the final list of those who will work on preparing our meeting, we, for our part, will also announce who will work on it from our side, the Russian side. But at the first stage, without any doubt, the first steps in this direction should be taken by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Lavrov, and Secretary of State, Rubio. Well, that's what we agreed upon. And now I see, I am familiar with this statement. The President of the United States has decided to cancel or postpone this meeting. Rather, he is speaking about postponing this meeting. Well, what can I say? Dialogue is always better than any confrontation, than any disputes, or all the more so than war. Therefore, we have always supported this, the continuation of dialogue, and we support it now. Now, regarding the new sanctions, first of all, there is nothing new here. Yes, of course, they are serious for us, that is clear, and they will have certain consequences, but they will not significantly affect our economic well-being. Well, it is known that during his first presidential term, President Trump introduced the largest number of sanctions that had ever been imposed against the Russian Federation up to that time. Today, they have, of course, two aspects, both purely political and economic. As for the political aspect, what is it about? It is, of course, an attempt to put pressure on Russia, but no self-respecting country and no self-respecting people ever make any decisions under pressure. And undoubtedly, Russia has the privilege of feeling itself and considering itself on this list of self-respecting countries and peoples. That is the first point. The second is the purely economic component. But if we speak about the political part, then of course this is an unfriendly act toward Russia. That is obvious. And it does not strengthen Russian-American relations, which have only just begun to recover. Of course, through such actions, the U.S. administration is harming Russian-American relations. As for the economic side, I repeat once again, of course, there is nothing good or pleasant here. But if we look objectively and professionally at the economic side of these sanctions, what do we see? At present, the United States, in my opinion, produces about 13.5 million barrels per day, ranking first. In second place is Saudi Arabia, somewhere around 10 million, and the Russian Federation is in third, with about 9.5 million barrels per day. But the United States consumes 20 million. They sell something and buy even more, mainly from Canada. So they produce 13.5 and consume 20. But the Russian Federation and Saudi Arabia sell more oil and petroleum products. I might be mistaken about something. I might mix something up as I speak offhand. But the overall order will be close to reality. And what is that reality? Saudi Arabia sells about 9 million tons of oil and petroleum products to foreign markets, while the Russian Federation sells 7.5 million tons. That means our contribution to the global energy balance is very significant. Very significant. And now this balance has been established both in the interests of consumers and in the interests of producers. To break this balance is a very thankless task, including for those who are trying to do so. Why? Well, first of all, it must be said that overall, production is currently on a plateau. Of course, some part, obviously not all, that is impossible, but some part of Russian oil and petroleum products can be replaced on the world market. But firstly, this requires time, and secondly, it requires large investments. For the first time, we have recently heard from the International Energy Agency that it is proposing and encouraging participants in economic activity to invest in hydrocarbon energy. Until now, it was the other way around. It was said, including within the framework of the International Energy Agency, that investments should be made in alternative sources of energy. Yes, that is necessary, but it has become clear that it will be impossible to do without hydrocarbons in the coming years, in any case, in the coming decades. This is obvious in connection with the growth of consumption. The world economy is growing and energy consumption is increasing. So it is not possible to sharply increase production at once, in the moment. And if the amount of our oil and petroleum products on the world market sharply decreases, prices will rise. And my American colleague and I also talked about this. What will this lead to? It will lead to a sharp increase in the cost of oil and petroleum products, including at gas stations. And the United States is no exception. And if we take into account the domestic political calendar in the same United States, it is clear how sensitive certain processes will be in this regard. And those who are advising the current U.S. administration to make such decisions, one must understand whom they are actually working for. But that is not important. For us, something else is important, that we feel confident, stable, and despite certain losses, which of course will occur, as this is connected with many circumstances, nevertheless, our energy sector feels quite confident. I hope this will not lead to serious changes in the world market. Although everyone should now think, and I agree with the International Energy Agency, think about the need to invest in traditional energy, in traditional types of energy. That is what we are doing and intend to continue doing. If in the end, we move not to some kind of pressure, but to a serious conversation about the future, including in the economic sphere, then we have many areas for joint work. We are generally ready for this, but as we see, this depends not only on the Russian Federation, but also on our partners, in this case, the American ones.
Thank you. A question, please, from Konstantin Kolesnikov's television channel. With regard to the use of Western long-range weapons, how do you personally assess those obviously contradictory signals coming from Washington? Yesterday, the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal reported that the U.S. lifted a key restriction on the use of this weapon. Then Trump said that Tomahawks, nevertheless, will not be supplied. And just an hour ago, Zelensky again says that Ukraine will receive weapons that will strike at almost 3,000 kilometers. In your view, is this still an escalation?
This is an attempt at escalation. But if strikes against Russian territory are carried out with such weapons, the response will be very serious, if not stunning. Let them think about that.